It's Monday, July 1st, 2019, and this is the Pro and the Con Show, and my name is Michael James Out. I am your host. Welcome again to the show every day, 15 to 20 minutes every day. Oh, yeah. So, welcome to the show. As I said a moment ago, the intent of the show is to try to encourage dialogue because we have these opposing views here, and it's very polarized. And quite frankly, it's a big part of it is just misunderstanding, and that's brought about by ignorance, by the way, which is not a bad word. Ignorance just means that you just don't know, and we haven't been really good. We haven't been very adept at sharing each other's views and trying to understand the other person's view. And so that's the whole intent of the Pro and Con show, is to encourage us to do that and to look at some of the information that might come at us and try to point out why we are being so polarized. And it has what I call, it's due in significant part to the jingo journalism and the jingoism of our commander-in-chief. Actually, he's very happy to throw in the insults and make up names and so on of various adversaries because that's what he likes to do. And some number of us, unfortunately, find that to be, I don't know, entertaining, different. They call it honest, and it is true. Mr. Trump is being very honest. Basically, he honestly believes that he is the one and only person that's ever been born that's worthy of doing anything, and the rest of us are meaningless, worthless people, unless, of course, we're doing exactly what he wants us to do at that moment. And the moment we aren't, then we're worthless again, which is very typical of a con man or con artist or confidence man. This is all the terms that describe Mr. Trump. So normally try to go through some of the news and point out some of the things that are going on. So from this today, from left to right, so Huffington Post, CNN, NPR, Fox News, and Breitbart. Huffington Post, of course, with the jingo journalism here, shock report, capital letters, underline, secret hate Facebook group for Border Patrol. So it turns out, at least it's reported in the Huffington Post, and I've heard it reported on a couple of other information channels. Notice I didn't say news. Information channels, that there is at least some number of supposedly U.S. Border Patrol members that participate in a Facebook group, and that Facebook group has been, or at least a lot of the language, supposedly. I have not been there, don't intend to go there, actually. And I'll explain why in a second. But, I have been making, racist and less than positive and appropriate remarks. So the question, I don't have the resources to tear into this, but I would also say that I heard there was a couple, some tens of thousands of Border Patrol people in the entire organization. And yes, you're going to have hundreds, if not thousands, of people that are going to, especially in their free time, talk about inappropriate stuff. And that's, it reflects the rest of the nation. So this is all about, this is why, look, folks, we got to come together. We can stand on opposite sides of the street and yell and scream at each other. I'll talk a little bit about some other stuff here. But we can yell and scream at each other from opposite sides of the street. But the reality is that we're all under the same laws, and we've got to, come up with the policies and the laws that best fit us all as best we can. That's the way government works. And if we're not talking, if we're not sharing, if we're not open to at least understanding of where other people are coming from, remember, I can't emphasize this enough, no matter where you are and how you feel about a particular issue, that's because you were born where you were born, and you had the DNA and stuff that you have, and you had the education and the experiences and all that stuff that leads you up to this moment in time. And this moment in time gives you the perception that you have. But just like this dollar coin, which most of you will see a likeness of George Washington on one side, that has, up to this moment, watching this video, you see a likeness of George Washington, and I see a likeness of the Statue of Liberty. Because I was born where I was born and raised where I was raised, and his experiences that I've had, and when it comes to looking at this coin, I see a likeness of the Statue of Liberty. And you would say, you're crazy. And again, you can get on one side of the street and yell Washington, 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 and I can get on the other side of the street and yell Liberty, 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 and we can start throwing rocks and bombs and whatever else. But the reality is the coin has two sides. And that's, the truth is a complex thing. And it's not, the truth can't be expressed in a few words. The truth can't be expressed in a 15-second or 30-second sound bite. The truth is that there's the pros and the cons, the good and the bad, and for and against. The pro and the con, hence the pro and con show. Okay, so, we need to understand there's a lot going on at the border for sure. And so some congressmen were down there, and they went and looked at some of these facilities that are holding migrants, and they came back, a significant portion of them came back and said, this is really atrocious behavior on our part. We have to do something about this. Of course, there's opposing views. But anyway, so I just want to, the main point behind showing you the headlines and stuff is this shock and awe kind of stuff, so the jingo journalism. And the reality is that there's a lot of things that are causing people to try to immigrate into our country. And we aren't, there's a lot of things we could be doing to try to mitigate that before they ever arrive at our borders, by helping fix some of the issues in these countries where they're migrating from. And then, there's a whole litany of things that we could be doing, but, that's a choice. And the problem is that none of us really feel comfortable about what that choice is, because we don't know all the facts, because no one, Mr. Trump and his administration is not doing anything to educate anybody. They're just, well, this needs to be done. And, there's thousands of murderers trying to cross the border. Well, that's not true. There are not thousands of murderers. There's thousands of people trying to get into the country because they're trying to get away from what is a horrific life, a life that the most of us in the United States, even the most poor of us, could hardly imagine. Anyway, and so we should be taking some days and looking into, well, why are these people coming up here? What's going on in Nicaragua and Uruguay or whatever and I'm getting them wrong. I apologize. I should I should be looking into more of where these people are coming from. But what is going on? Well, there's some a lot of criminal activity and poverty and so on, and drug stuff, and it's a mess. I know that much, but should know more. And perhaps on a future show, we'll talk about exactly what's going on to cause these migrants to want to, take the risk. They're traveling thousands of miles on foot to try to go to a better place. And that's the United States. That's why we have the Statue of Liberty, and we're all, except for the Native Americans, we're all here because we're came to a different. Well, I guess African Americans, a significant proportion of those were forced to come here by or at least their forefathers. So anyway, but the reality is, if you're not a Native American, you came here and you're an immigrant, basically, whether you came here or whether your families came here voluntarily or not. We're all immigrants, and we're all different shapes and sizes and colors of eye, hair, and skin, and that makes no difference. It just it's us. So anyway, that's what's going on in Huffington Post, and then CNN. What I also want to do today, we've got maybe 5 or 10 minutes left, is the Democrats had a couple of debates. So they had 20-some candidates, and they went through the debates on Wednesday and Thursday, which I watched all 4 hours. I hope you did. Again, the current president is a con artist, con man, confidence man, and maybe he was the best that we had to choose from back in the day. I personally don't believe that either, but okay, maybe he was. But today, certainly in 2020, we should try to find someone that would be better than a con artist, confidence man, con man. Okay? And so, because of the way the system is, it's not what it should be, it is what it is. So the Democratic Party is basically going to have to come forth with this alternative to Mr. Trump. And so there really is 4 major leaders now. You've got Joe Biden, then Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and then kind of in another tier, there's Pete Buttigieg. So these top ones are around 15 or 20%, and Buttigieg is down around 4 or 5%, and then everybody else is like polling at 2% kind of stuff. And the next set of debates, they're going to require that the candidates have polled at least 2% in at least 4 different national polls, which is probably going to cut that debate down from 20 something to 6, 7, 8 candidates. I can't hardly see that happening any different. And as far as so there's a lot of discussion about, so here's the thing with political parties. So polarize. So you've got the right, who's, basically gun control and anti-abortion. And they're clinging strongly onto Mr. Trump because he promises to appoint conservative judges to the Supreme Court, because that's how they're going to protect their guns and get rid of abortion. And then you've got the polarized left, who wants to get rid of the guns. I mean, not completely, but certainly restrain them quite a bit and be more open to abortion, the possibility of abortion. And there we are. Okay. And really where the nation wants to be is kind of in the middle. So I talked in the past about, abortion should be legal and safe and affordable for those times that it's necessary. But then a key thing is it should be very rare. Um, and so you wrap it into this holistic thing around, you know, childbirth and pregnancy and pre-pregnancy care and pregnancy care and post-pregnancy care and improving infant health and all this other stuff. And also, the key thing is to make it where having a child for a woman is not so darned onerous that they would choose an abortion over having the child. So one of the things, so I was in business for a long time, and various times I was in the kind of the business management aspect of it. And what you try to do is find a win for everybody. If you really want to succeed in something, it's called a win-win situation. And so you look at the stakeholders, the people that are involved in a particular issue, or a particular decision, and you try to make it where everybody wins. Well, the conservatives, they want to have way fewer abortions. That's the thing that they want. That's the fundamental thing that they want. Now, the way that they're going about it is trying to get them declared illegal and criminal. And then the other side of it wants to give women choice. They want to have options because they can have control of their bodies. And me as a man, I have to say, I can't have a baby. So women, I mean, this is a very onerous thing that women have to do if we're going to continue the species. They have to have children. And so that has all kinds of social economic impact for them. And they deserve to have a huge say in this, and a huge say in around what goes on with their lives. And so they want to be able to do something that's if they should become pregnant, they have some choices other than being saddled with a child that they, in some cases, they don't want for the rest of their lives. And so, okay, folks, how do we? There's a place in the middle here. There is a place in the middle here where we holistically look at this and say, okay, we don't have to declare abortions illegal to make sure that many of them don't happen. What we can do is, they can be legal in certain circumstances that make sense to us, make sense to everybody. And then the way you limit them is you provide the mechanisms around women who suffer the burden of this so that they don't feel like it's a burden anymore. Problem solved. Okay. Well, I was gonna, and I am going to do that anyway. So we get ready for the platform, and again, I was where that tangent took me. Sorry about that. It was definitely a tangent. The Democratic Party now is going to have someone, and they're probably going to be a lot more left-leaning than a lot of Republicans would like, and even some Democrats. Okay, and so you're going to have this just be a total mandate of Trump and anti-Trump. And the real need for us is, one, to get away from the stupid two-party system, which I will talk about and have talked about multiple times. But right now, today, what we have is what we have. And we got to depend on the Democratic Party to get rid of and replace a con man, con artist, confidence man, that is Mr. Donald Trump. So we need a super candidate offering a super platform. And I've been thinking about this for quite some time. So who's the super candidate? Very comfortable speaking freely in front of any audience, perceived as empathetic and is empathetic to the public, and has a modest sense of humor. Minimal skeletons in the closet regarding past comments, actions, and voting records. Perceived fair-minded and open to opposing views, a moderate versus liberal. Does not accept funding from rich donors. Unfortunately, probably a man. Not unfortunately, but yes, to some degree, unfortunately. A woman should be president. A minority, other than Barack Obama, should be president. There's no reason why that shouldn't be true. But again, the super candidate to make sure we defeat Donald Trump, probably a man, although it could be an exceptional woman. And if it looks like it's going to be an exceptional woman, it's looking more and more like it's going to be Kamala Harris or Elizabeth Warren, and maybe, but she's really a dark horse anymore, Amy Klobuchar. But one of those three, Amy being the one that would actually, she was doing way better in the polls, she would actually fit the rest of this discussion here, has some previous leadership experience in government. Okay, and what's the super platform? Well, proposes to remake the election process. So we have to get rid of the two-party system, and so some of the Democrats are definitely talking about that. The other thing is that they have to reach out to people on the other side of these things, and not just talk to the Democratic Party. So they make appearances on Fox News whenever possible. So that was number two. Emphasize job creation via environmental and superstructure programs in the poorest areas of the country. We've got to lift up the people that are struggling. Emphasizes campaigning in the swing states and rural areas and conservative strongholds. You got to get out there and you got to meet these people so they get to know you, so that they'll feel comfortable about voting for you instead of the guy we have in the Oval Office. Emphasize better wages by mandating changes in corporate goals. This is the redefining success. So the number two goal of every corporation should be employee satisfaction, not shareholder value. Number six, emphasize affordable health care by, again, a holistic approach, pulling the kimonos back on where all the cost structure really is, and then setting up a fundamental basic national medical coverage, and then private insurance above that. And this is how all the other countries around the world that have government central insurance, that's how they do it. There's a kind of a primary care, and then people buy supplemental policies to increase their care levels above that. That's what we should be doing too. Emphasizing balancing the budget by careful selection of tax increases and cost reductions. For example, military spending on cutting-edge technology would be cut back. You would buy base equipment with upgrade options later. That's an idea. Supports availability of safe and legal abortions, but only under limited circumstances. I talked about that earlier in the show. Supports reducing the cost of college, and a big part of it is the lending practices and the government subsidies could be earned for good grades in fields important to the future. So one of the problems that we have with some of the candidates saying, oh, we're going to make college free for everybody, is we easily could have a bunch of physical education majors with degrees and no marketplace for them to use that. So there has to be structure around this thing to make sure that it makes sense to even get somebody a degree, and then, make it where it's somehow affordable for us to pay for it. Supports gun ownership, but because there are good things about having guns, but targets the mass shootings through public education, mental health screening, gun safety training, and reduction in notoriety of perpetrators. My analogy there is what happened in the 70s with streakers, and I know it's not anywhere near as serious, but this mental part of it seems like it's related, that people are kind of this copycat Me Too thing. Emphasize the deceit of Donald Trump and labels him accurately as a prolific and long-standing confidence man. That he is. It's a fact, not an opinion. Emphasizes the degrading mental condition of Donald Trump. So this is also a fact. You can show videos of him speaking back in 1980s and today, and his vocabulary and his syntax and everything is markedly degraded compared to what it was 30 years ago. Markedly degraded. Emphasizes global dependence upon each other. In other words, the countries have to work. If we want to resolve some of these issues around the world, we got to work together, including population growth and environmental degradation. And emphasize so the thing in the Middle East, Middle East peace, the state of Israel. This is probably the most controversial thing I'm going to say, but you support the Jewish people everywhere. And of course, what happened to them during World War II was horrific, and it was appropriate to try to do something. But we need something new. We need a new way to address this issue, because the old way of having an Israeli state and no Palestinian state isn't working. And I'm suggesting that we could, working through the United Nations, forcing strong negotiations and discussions through the United Nations, we might look at an alternative, like setting up religious safe zones in certain areas around the world where no one owns it, everyone does. Because some of these places are so sacred to so many people, it's inappropriate to limit anybody from being in this area because they believe it's important to them and important to their relationship with God. Well, we're definitely running over, so I figured I'd cover it anyway, so there you go. Again, this is the Pro and Con Show. My name is Michael James Ott. I look forward to talking to you again, and until then, bye for now.